My name is Emily, and I'd like to share my journey of learning English with you. It all began when I was 8 years old. Back then, English seemed like a mountain I could never climb. I watched people speak it so fluently, and I felt small. I didn't know where to start. Every time someone spoke to me in English, I would freeze, and I'd feel tears coming to my eyes because I didn't understand. One day, in school, our teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves in English. I was terrified. I didn't know how to say anything beyond hello when it was my turn. I stood up, opened my mouth, and nothing came out. I felt the eyes of my classmates on me, and I started to cry. That moment stayed with me. I felt ashamed, but it also pushed me. I thought, I want to learn. I want to speak English without fear. My journey started with small steps. I began with basic words: apple, book, cat. My mom would sit with me every evening and help me practice. She would say, Emily, remember, even the longest journey begins with a single step. Those words stayed in my heart. Every time I felt frustrated, I would remember her saying that. Listening was one of the first things that helped me. I would listen to English songs and try to sing along. At first, the words didn't make sense to me, but the more I listened, the more familiar they became. One song became my favorite. I would sing it over and over again, and each time I understood a little more. I felt like I was unlocking pieces of a puzzle. Movies also played a big part in my learning. I started watching English movies with subtitles. I remember watching a movie for the first time and understanding a full sentence without needing to read the subtitles. That day, I felt a rush of happiness. It was like a light had switched on in my brain. I thought, maybe I can do this. Reading simple books helped me a lot. My teacher gave me a small English book with colorful pictures. At first, I would read 1 page a day, trying to understand every word. Every time I learned a new word, it felt like discovering a treasure. Slowly, my confidence grew, and I could read more and more. The stories opened up new worlds for me, and English no longer felt like a stranger. But speaking was still hard. I was so scared of making mistakes. Every time I tried to speak in English, I felt like people were going to laugh at me. One day, during English class, my teacher noticed how quiet I was. After class, she came to me and said, Emily, don't be afraid to speak. Mistakes are your best teachers. Without mistakes, we cannot grow. Her words changed something in me. From that day, I started speaking, even if it was just one sentence. I would say, good morning to my teacher every day. At first, I was nervous, but soon it became easy. I realized that speaking English wasn't as scary as I had thought. One memory I have is of a day when I was feeling very sad. I was sitting in the park, and an elderly man came and sat next to me. He asked me, "Are you okay in English?" For a moment, I didn't know what to say. But then, I gathered all the courage I had and said, "I'm sad." He smiled and said, "It's okay to feel sad sometimes." We spoke for a few minutes, and I felt comforted. It wasn't a long conversation, but it reminded me that English was more than just a language, it was a way to connect with others. As I moved from basic English to more advanced levels, I started learning grammar. I have to admit, grammar was hard for me. There were so many rules, and I didn't always understand them. But my teacher once said, "Grammar is like the frame of a house. Without it, the house can't stand strong." So I paid attention to grammar, learning one rule at a time, slowly building my house. Writing also became an important part of my journey. I started keeping a diary in English. At first, I would write only a few words, like "today was good" or "I am happy," but as my vocabulary grew, I could write more. Writing helped me organize my thoughts, and I felt like I was talking to myself in a new way. I remember the first time I wrote a full letter to my friend in English. It wasn't perfect, but when she read it, she said, "Emily, you've learned so much that made me feel proud." English wasn't just a subject I was learning in school, it was becoming a part of who I was. Another big moment in my journey was when I joined an English club. We would meet once a week and speak only in English. At first, it was hard, and I didn't always understand everything. But everyone in the club was so supportive. We helped each other. No one laughed when someone made a mistake. Instead, we would say, "Good try," and help them find the right words. It felt like being part of a team, and that gave me the confidence to keep going. I want to share some tips that helped me, in case they might help you too. Start small. Don't try to learn everything at once. Focus on a few words each day. Listen to English music. Sing along. Even if you don't know all the words, it will help you get used to the sounds. Watch English movies. Use subtitles at first, but slowly challenge yourself to watch without them. Read simple books. Even if you read just one page a day, it will help you build your vocabulary. Speak as much as you can. Don't worry about making mistakes. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Write in English. Keep a diary or write short letters to friends. It helps you organize your thoughts. Find a study partner. Learning with someone else makes it more fun and less scary. Be patient. Learning a language takes time. Don't rush yourself. Use apps or websites to practice grammar. Make it a habit to practice a little every day. Celebrate small victories. Every word you learn is a step forward. I also faced moments when I wanted to give up. There were days when it felt like I wasn't making any progress, but I kept reminding myself every step, no matter how small, is progress. English opened so many doors for me. It allowed me to connect with new people, understand new cultures, and see the world in a different way. One day, I was in a cafe, and a tourist asked me for directions in English. Without thinking, I answered them, and they smiled and thanked me. That moment made me realize how far I had come. English was no longer something I feared, it had become a part of my life. To anyone who is learning English, I want to say this: don't give up. It's okay to feel frustrated sometimes, but remember that every word you learn is a step closer to your goal. English is not just a language. It's a bridge to new opportunities, new friendships, and new experiences. You are not just learning words, you are learning to express yourself in a whole new way. And that's a beautiful thing. I leave you with this thought: learning English is like planting a garden. It takes time and care, but every seed you plant will grow into something beautiful. Keep planting, keep watering, and one day you'll see your garden bloom. Tell me, how has your journey been so far? What are the challenges you've faced, and what small victories have made you proud? Let's share our stories and learn from each other.